Okay, we've got a clock. That's pretty cool. We've got this now. That's all set up. Gotta get all my windows in order, as it were. And do that and that. I think we're all good. All right. Good morning. It is kind of cloudy today, but it's going to be surprisingly kind of warm. Be high of 53 Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius. But yeah, it's going to be, I think, relatively decent. I'm not going to enjoy it because I'm going to be spending the majority of my day in airports or airplanes. I'm going to Reno, Nevada for the Game Manufacturers Association trade show, the Gamma Expo. So I'll be there this entire week. As soon as I get done with this show, I have to literally leap up, and pack, because I'm not good at scheduling, as it turns out. Let's see here. Greetings from sunny Tinley Park, Illinois. Evening from a rainy Gothenburg. Perfect weather for modeling and painting. Morning from Knoxville, Malaysia, Connecticut, Germany, Illinois, Denmark. Me and the girlfriend are better this time around, planning to get a bit of kill team painting done today. Spectacular. Hello from Nederland, Texas. Let's see here. We've got good morning from KC. Long time since I could catch a show live. Well, we're glad to have you. Netherlands, Montreal, Edinburgh, Taiwan, England, Belgium. Good morning from Louisville. Stupid daylight savings time. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why, if it seems like the show is early, it's because we just flipped over to daylight savings time over here in the U.S. So yay. Reno, aka not Vegas. Yeah, no, that's basically the case. Eau Claire. So it's going to be 60 degrees in Eau Claire. Nice. Singapore. Morton says, looking forward to hearing what's coming out at Gamma. Yeah, absolutely. Good morning from Georgia, Spain, Shenzhen. Uncle Adam, don't forget hand sanitizer. Yep, definitely doing that. Probably going to be doing a lot of this instead of shaking hands as well. That's going to be happening. Montreal, Canada. Let's see here. Hello from the most miserable city in America, Washington, D.C. I've been to D.C. To be fair, I've been there when it's been really hot. Like late August, early September for Nova. It's like 95 degrees. So, but I'm mostly indoors and it seems fine there. Let's see here. Hello from Ireland. We've got Poland. We've got Mexico. Good afternoon from Limerick, Ireland. Finally out of a hobby slump and catching up on my Death Guard. I was hoping that was going to turn into a limerick, but, it makes sense. I get it. Good morning from sunny Massachusetts. Love the show. Just started maneuvering my hive tyrant. Ooh, that sounds like fun. Good morning, fam. Lurking at work per the usual, says Emily. How you doing, Emily? What's up from the Poconos? Nice. Hello from Belfast, Ireland. I had to adjust my schedule to make the show. Again, I apologize for daylight savings. Let's see here. David Moffat says, my homeland of the Yukon has had its last time change. They're sticking with daylight saving time. Interesting. Huh. Let me see here. Morning from Calgary. Greetings from Norway. Seoul, out of work from coronavirus. Yeah. Can you do the Spock thing with both hands? Yeah, and, well, it's a little harder, honestly, with my left hand, not to mention it. Let me see here. Greetings from Stockholm, Sweden, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Iowa, Lincoln, Nebraska, Hudson, Illinois. Emily says, I'm flying today too, Adam, but it's a red eye, so I won't see you at the connection. No, probably not. I'm flying. We're leaving. Our flight leaves like at 2:30, I think, and then it's one of those rare, for me at least, like 2 stops where like we go fly to Minneapolis and then from Minneapolis to Vegas and then Vegas to Reno, because very little flies directly into Reno, which is kind of a pain. Like, I like this convention. This is my well, it's not, it's a trade show. This is my third trade show there, and I like the trade show. It's run relatively well. The place that it's in is nice. I like it. I've not really traveled outside of the building too much, but getting there is a little bit of a pain. So, hi from Italy, hello from Sweden, Edinburgh, Scotland. Putting together a Rebel Gar army for the next Antares Day in Nottingham at Warlord Games. That's what WG means. Cool. That sounds neat. Greetings from Overcast, Florida, Charlotte, North Carolina. Sam Hinchy says, how is the coronavirus going to affect the hobby? I mean, it's slowing down some shipments on certain things that are coming from China. I know that that's the case because the Chinese factories are not working at full capacity because of the virus. I know there's been a lot of talk about, like, well, you know, and there have been plenty of conventions, conventions, gatherings, South by Southwest being one of the biggest, that's been canceled. This convention I'm going to, this trade show I'm going to today, that's going to be going on this week, the Gamma trade show. There was talk about it, but it's a small enough gathering to some degree that it was not canceled. Also, I mean, some people did drop out. Some companies decided they didn't want to make the trip because of the virus and things like that, which is understandable. AdeptiCon has been working very diligently with the Chicago health department, because they're outside of Chicago, and also with the hotel convention center to step up stuff to just sterilize walkway railings and all the elevator buttons and do all that stuff constantly, and have extra people on staff to do all that jazz. And so, because they don't want to cancel either. It's not good when a convention has to cancel. So for the convention, it can end a convention. So they're planning on not ending. I know that last I heard, at least one vendor had dropped out of Adepticon, but it was because their stuff wasn't going to be getting shipped from China, so they thought there was no reason to be at the vendor booth to sell the stuff that wasn't going to come in. So, but there's a lot of people who are speculating and saying, oh, we should definitely, I'm surprised that these things haven't closed. Well, when South by Southwest is going to heavily affect the city of Austin by not being open this year. That's 400,000 people coming to town and buying drinks and going to restaurants and staying in hotels, and that's going to be a huge blow. So, the decision needs to be made one way or the other, don't get me wrong, but it can't be made lightly. So, anyway, that'll be pretty much about the end of that. Hello, Uncle Adam from Worcestershire. I'm not going to get that right, I'm sure. England. Inspiration for the Shire in The Hobbit. Oh, well, there you go. Let me see here. Alexander Warren says, I've been watching your videos and I really enjoy watching them. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Let me see here. Hail and well met from Maidstone, Kent, in a rainy, windswept England. That sounds gothic, maybe, almost a little bit. That's fun. Let me see here. Emerald City Comic-Con is delayed. Yes, I saw that too. Greetings from a very wet Plymouth. Currently painting aberrants for an event at Warhammer World in June. Nice. Let's see here. It's Sunday Fun Day. Finally going to start putting together my Bone Reapers. I thought about Bone Reapers for Warcry for a hot minute, and then I decided I already had too much stuff going on, so I decided to not do that. But there are some of the models that I was like, I kind of think those are cool. Let me see here. Hi from Mexico City. Greetings from Kansas. Currently painting up some knobs. Is it knobs or nobes? I've heard different people say different things. The idea behind nobes is that it's short for nobles, I guess, but it's spelled knobs. N-O-B-S or N-O-B-Z. Well, normally knobs would be spelled with a K in the beginning, but it's neither here nor there as far as English is concerned. But I don't know. I've always referred to them as knobs, but I was listening to a podcast and they referred to them as nobes, and I was like, huh. So I don't know. I don't know if GW has ever come out and made an official, it's pronounced this way kind of a post or anything like that, but I'm not sure. David Moffat says, I'm cleaning the bathroom and I found a random 15mm infantry. Huh. Wonder how that soldier got lost in the bathroom. VJ Morph, hey VJ, asks, Adam, do you think you might get any more Blitz Bowl Season 2 info at Gamma? Do you remember if Season 1 was there a couple of years back? GW's booth is usually right up in the front. I usually have a case full of miniatures. I know the first year I was there, they were showing... It was like the first time they'd showed off for Shadespire. You know how like Shadespire came with like some Chaos dudes, like 5 shirtless Chaos dudes, and then like 3 Stormcast. And then they came out with a bunch of other war bands, and at the end of that cycle, they came out with another Stormcast and another like kind of corn, like folks said, it was like a corn dog, you know, like that, one of those big dog guys, and they had the bigger armor. I can't think what they're called. Not Blood Reavers, Blooders. I don't know what they were, but anyway, those were shown off. Like that was like the first place you could see them was at Gamma for whatever reason. I think they hadn't even maybe showed them off yet on Warhammer Community. So there's a possibility, and I know I've also seen in the cases in their booth, not Blitz Bowl but Blood Bowl painted up armies like that were being released. But I don't know. We'll see. I'll definitely keep an eye out. Let me see here. Seems like most people say knobs. No one ever says knobs though, do they? That'd be fun. Greetings from Southern Iowa. Finished up my Harlequins, trying my hand at altering some magic cards now. Interesting. Let me see here. Salutations from Herefordshire, working on Iron Hands currently. Morning, Adam. I turn 42 next month and finally reached that age for historicals. I don't know what it is about the age of 42, but man, 42 all of a sudden you're just like, I'm interested in World War II or something. You know what I mean? It's odd. I don't know what that is. At least as a guy. I mean, definitely, you know, it's different, obviously, if you're a lady, I suspect. Are there any planned meetups for AdeptiCon? Yes. Currently, Friday night at 6 p.m., there is going to be a meetup. It'll be me and Sam, and we will find a spot to post up somewhere at the convention, and people should just come by and not shake our hands, I guess, probably. Again, a lot of this. But we don't know 100% where in the facility yet, but we will post something on our Facebooks and all the other social shenanigans. So, yeah, we'll be doing that. But, yeah, so set that aside. Pencil it in. 6 p.m. on Friday during AdeptiCon is when the shenanigans shall start. I wanted a better word there, but I couldn't think of one. Magor's Fiends. Those were the dudes that I was talking about with the corn dog, yes. The Blood Warriors. Blood Warriors is probably better than Blood Blooders. I think that's fine. Legend Eternal says, I'm 45 and I haven't gone historical yet. Still like my crazy orcs. I'm not saying it happens to everybody. I'm just saying that people I've talked to who all of a sudden are like, when I tell them, or when I ask them, so at what age did you all of a sudden start to get into historicals? That age, 42, seems to happen sort of repeatedly. It's interesting. Just getting back into 40K. Last played 5th edition, painting up all my Blood Angels I never finished as a kid. Hello from Pittsburgh. Well, good on you. Absolutely. You might want to start early on the kill team discussion because we can go all day about confusing GW rules. Well, that's not necessarily the total conversation, but yeah. Wasn't Kill Team announced at Gamma 2018? Maybe Kill Team 2.0 this year. I don't remember if it was or not. So, no, because it was too late in the year. So this is what I remember. They announced Shadow War Armageddon. Maybe. I remember they announced Shadow War Armageddon and then almost immediately afterwards announced Kill Team. or very close to immediately afterwards. And Gamma's always in March. There's that toy show in New York. I remember it just being very strange that it was like nearly the same time. I know that Kill Team came out in July, I think. Late July, maybe 2018. So that's the right year, but I feel as if they announced it. I don't know. I feel like they announced it later. I don't know. Maybe did they announce it at AdeptiCon? The press thingy? I don't know. Because we were at Gamma 2018, and I would have remembered. I remember definitely being in the office and reading about it online when they announced it. I definitely remember that, I think. Anyway, hard to say. I'm sure it could be looked up, but I don't. I can't do it right now. Mr. Sweetie Bear 95 asks, does Adepticon have day passes? I can't find anything on the site, but admittedly I didn't look that hard. Well, let me tell you the story. The way it works is this. Let's say you live nearby or whatever, and you just wanted to walk in and check it out. You don't have to pay. That's the great thing about Adepticon. If you want to be in any tournaments, if you want to take any classes, if you want to do any of that stuff, you need to have a badge. And I think it costs, I don't know, $45 for the entire weekend. It's relatively inexpensive. But if you just want to poke your head in, do some recon, see what things look like, go through the vending area, buy stuff, look at all the cool stuff, doesn't cost anything. So if you don't live too far away from Adepticon, you should definitely make the trip and come in and check it out and walk around. Yeah, like Gen Con, like it's always confused me when big conventions, like if you want to go into the vendor area at Gen Con, you have to show someone your badge as you walk in. If I was a vendor, that would confuse me. I would be flummoxed. Because I'm like, how about if we just have people come in and buy stuff and then they don't have to pay a lot of money? Like these days, I don't even know what a Gen Con 4-day badge is. $112, $120, $130 for a 4-day badge, something crazy like that. Like I've been getting press badges for the last several years, which is great, but that's why I don't know the price. But yeah, it's like if you want to come into the building and walk around, great, you can do that. You can't really see much, but you can do that. But if you want to walk into the vendor area and buy stuff from the booths that those companies paid a whole bunch of money for, yeah, you have to have a badge. So that's weird. But that's not how it works at Adepticon. Adepticon, you want to walk in and buy stuff from the vendors and look around and see things and not like participate in any events. It's free. So definitely give that a try if you get the chance. Brought my first ever Warhammer miniatures on February 28th and collected them yesterday. Gone for Necrons and will be starting with Kill Team and my mate going up to 40k. Wish me luck. Well, good luck. Absolutely. The Animaster says, actually, I've had this weird itch to paint something other than GW after I picked up some better techniques painting GW. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for that. I have not gotten into display painting yet. I have an idea for a display paint project I'd like to try sometime, but I don't know. It's not for everybody, that's for sure. But it can be also, I think, rewarding. I just like to paint stuff that I'm going to play with, though, for the most part. I really enjoy that. Let me see here. Castman83 says, hey, checking in from Delaware. Pumped to be live for the first time in forever. Well, we're glad to have you. Don't forget to check out Two Fat Lardies for any historical gaming from many different eras. I've seen... what's the name of the game that I've seen at a bunch of different shows recently? What a Tanker? I think it's called What a Tanker. And I don't know who keeps running it, but when they run it, they don't use... Like, they're not using, like, 28mm scale tanks or 15mm scale tanks. I don't know what the scale is, but they almost look like chibi tanks. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a tank. It's like a Sherman, except it's been, like, sort of squished this way. You know, like, instead of being, like, long and having the gun point that way, we're looking at it from the side. It's been, like, squeezed, and then it looks like a cartoon. It looks like, what the heck was that game? There was a video game that was called Heavy Gear, I think, and you drove in this sort of vehicle from time to time that looked like a short sort of cartoon chibi tank, and they've got models for the entire game, and they've got like bocage and trees and houses and all this stuff. And they set that up and they drive these weird cartoon tanks around and play this game. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it's What a Tanker by Fat Lardies. Two Fat Lardies. Eldarko says, so after doing some digging, Gamma 2018 was in March. Yeah. Kill Team was announced in July and released in August. Really? That's awful quick. Because I think that there was the New York trade shows where they announced Shadow War Armageddon. And I was like, ooh, that's really cool. And I was able to get one of the boxes that were super limited edition. And I bought one. And then, so I got all kinds of cool terrain and stuff. And then, seriously, like 3-4 months later, they announced, or maybe more, but they announced then Kill Team. And I was like, hey, that's weird. People are saying that Shadow War Armageddon was 2017. Well, I guess it's possible. Or maybe I'm thinking of the time, maybe it was the time between Shadow Armageddon and then Necromunda. Those two seemed very close together. I think that's maybe what I'm thinking of, because Shadow Armageddon was basically using Necromunda rules from like back in the day when Necromunda was basically using 2nd edition 40k rules. That's what it was. It was like Shadow Armageddon. People were like, hey, cool, they're bringing back Necromunda. They're just calling it, something else, and you don't use gangs. And then almost immediately afterwards, and they were like, "Oh, good, now Necromunda's out," and people were like, "Wait, what?" And those are the two that were very close together. You're right. Kill Team was the next year after that. Now we gotcha. Andrew Miller says, "Hello from Canton, I'm going to say Michigan. Cool to finally catch a live show. Looking forward to AdeptiCon. Hoping to catch Uncle Adam there. Maybe throw down a friendly game of Kill Team. I don't know if I'm bringing an army or not." That's a good question. The question for me is time. I've got a bunch of interviews and things that I'm planning on doing, but we'll see. I didn't realize that AdeptiCon was free except for event entries. Are people allowed to be in the gaming area as observers? Well, yes. See, it's not free, technically. Like, if you just want to come in and walk around, it's free. If you want to be in an event, then you have to buy a badge, and then there's also the event fees. So, like, if you buy a badge, then you also generally get some other kind of benefits too. Like you might get a swag bag and whatever. It depends. But Metal Slug is the game. Thank you. That was probably the one I was thinking of. Heavy Gear was something else. I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, you need the badge, and then if you want it to be, let's say, in the 40k championship, there's a fee for that as well. So yeah, basically you need to buy the badge to be able to pay the other fees to be in those events. But you don't. If you want to just go in and buy stuff from the vendors and walk around and look at cool things, then there you go. Good day from Australia. Getting into Kill Team with my dad and painting up some of my first figures ever. Wish me luck. Well, or wish us luck. Good luck. Heavy Gear was an RPG. Oh yeah, Heavy Gear was with the robots. Yeah. It was made by not Gale Force 9, DreamPod 9. I think that's right. Trey Baker says, I love What a Tanker. You can find those chibi tanks in capsule machines here in Japan. I think these were bigger. These are actual models, because they were like, unless your capsule machines in Japan are huge, but these look like they were models that were, like I said, easily, they were still squished, but they were still probably, you can't tell here, unless, I'm sure your screen is not there, but that's like maybe 5 inches. So, let's see here. Do you think the Kill Team is alive and well? Or wait, no. Do you think that the Kill Team is alive and will be supported for at least one more year, or annual 2019 was a big fat dot to mark an end of updates? I think it will probably keep going. I would be sort of surprised if they decided to stop supporting it, because it is one of those great entry points that they really need to get people into the hobby. Warcry, Warhammer Underworlds, and also Kill Team, I think, are all real good entry points for them to be able to get people in the hobby. That, and also now they got this Space Marine Adventures game at Target. I mean, like it's they're always concerning themselves with ways to get people in the hobby. Now, whether they decide to make a completely new type of thing that replaces Kill Team, I guess there's a possibility, but it seems kind of dumb to do so. What I would do if I was them is just keep producing starter boxes. You know what I mean? Like they started with the first starter box, which came with all the terrain and the really cool buildings, and then it came with the two armies, Genestealer Cults and AdMech, and then that sold out. And there was gnashing of teeth, which I get. Then they came out with a new one, which has got the different type of terrain, and it's got Reavers and Tau. In my mind, next year or whatever, you come out with another box that's got some of the other new terrain that they might come out with, and also has these guys and those guys, whatever, and the book and all that kind of stuff. And you just keep cranking those things out. It makes, I think, more sense to keep that game around to get people into 40K, frankly. At least that would be the way that I do it, because if you get rid of that game or you stop supporting it, then you're going to get less people coming into the 40K line. Especially if they keep supporting Warcry and Warhammer Underworlds, because both of those feed into AOS, Age of Sigmar. So, yeah, I think that's the way it works. Let me see here. Going to start painting again today after a long break. I may start doing commission painting. Thanks for inspiring me to restart. Well, I'm glad to help. Absolutely. Let me see. AdeptiCon 2018 is where they first announced Kill Team. I was there. Huh. I was there too. Yeah, I haven't missed one since 2011, 2010, 2010, or 11. Maybe 11. I remember. All right. Yeah, my memory is lousy. Hey, Uncle Adam, can you ask Asmodee what's up with the distribution for the past 6 months? Legion is getting tough to find in stock. It's been bad at least since Gen Con. If I see Mr. Asmodee there at the Gamma, I'll definitely say, how do you say excuse me in French? Anyway, yeah, I don't know that they would tell me. I don't have any, like, I have people that I talk to sometimes at Games Workshop, a little bit here and there, like at shows, sometimes some emails back and forth. It's kind of rare, but there is some communication that goes on. I've never talked to anybody at Asmodee or had them reach out or email or anything. I did some interviews with people at Fantasy Flight Games way back when I was with Beasts of War in the early 2010s. Like at Gen Con, I did some interviews, but that's about it. Otherwise, I've never had any contact since then with people from Fantasy Flight. I mean, I'm assuming they must deal with podcasters and YouTubers and stuff like that here and there, but I've never... I got a free copy of Rune Wars, but that was actually through AdeptiCon, so that wasn't actually from them. But pretty much anybody that year that went to AdeptiCon, what was that, 2016, 2017, got a free copy of Rune Wars. I think mine's still in the shrink wrap, sadly. Or else I gave it away at TMX last year. Actually, that may have been what happened. Jonathan Westmoreland says, yep, you were at AdeptiCon 2018. I took 2 of your classes. Well, see, there you go. Andrew Connor says, is 9th edition imminent? No, I would not say so. Kay Holton says, excusez-moi is French for excuse me. That makes a lot of sense, actually. I took like 2 years of French, but it was in high school, which was a long time ago. Sauce 1101 says, shipments out of China are disrupted. Pretty much that explains Asmodee and everyone else. Yes and no. I've been hearing that Asmodee, specifically with Star Wars Legion, has been having trouble for longer than I think the coronavirus thing has been an issue. Trouble is a strong word. Stock levels have been low in some situations, and I don't know. I'm wondering if it has something to do with manufacturing in general. I mean, like, if you go back and remember how popular X-Wing was, and then how almost impossible it was to find anything for X-Wing, that's because that game got so popular that they just couldn't keep up with it. Now, obviously, it was harder to manufacture X-Wing because all those little ships had to be painted, whereas with Star Wars Legion, that stuff's not painted, so it's probably in some ways easier. But then, other than the droids, everybody comes in those weird little plastic baggies, like separate, and they're already cut off of the sprues and all that kind of stuff, which is also got to take a lot of time. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't had trouble getting Star Wars Legion around me, I guess, but then again, I haven't been buying a ton of it. But I've got an 800 point army of Imperials painted, and I've got my Rebels all bought, I think I do need to get like another box of just regular old Rebels, like base Rebel troops, because I thought I had more, but I don't. So yeah, I haven't seen that actually, the lower stock limits or stock levels for that. But when you say low stock levels to me, I do frequently think of Fantasy Flight / Asmodee. I feel as if, and I don't know this for sure, but I feel as if Asmodee is constantly trying to run as absolutely possibly lean as they can. And then in those situations, you do run afoul of stock levels. It's just the way that running that lean works. You know what I mean? The upside is that you don't have that problem. Let me see here. Oh, hang on. I'm not going to be joining anyone's webcam hot streams, so we're going to do that. Okay. Thank you for the heads up. I appreciate that. Currently painting Wraith Blades and decided to wet blend the swords. Never realized how much time it would take. I mean, it's like anything in the hobby, is that as you practice it, you get faster. But it can take some time, absolutely. I decided to take a break from minis for a while, going to try some World War II German tanks and armor, I think, for a change. Painting tanks is fun. Military tanks is fun because it's very different in that it's just basically like I just paint everything kind of the same color, unless maybe I'm going German and they've got that kind of sort of weird camo sometimes, which is a bit of a pain. And then I just get to spend a bunch of time weathering. You know what I mean? So that's kind of interesting. Kill Team died at my FLGS, and few are playing now, but Starbreach has a lot of buzz. Well, that's really cool. Starbreach is very cool. I like it. I was playing Kill Team actually yesterday. I was a friend of mine had like an event in his basement, and he has a nice basement. And yeah, we had like 8 people we were playing. We played 2-on-2 matches, which was a bit chaotic, but it was still a good time. Yeah, we that group of guys who've known each other for years and years and years has been getting into Kill Team because the guys whose house it was and we've been playing for a while, and the other guys have played 40K and stuff like that and other tabletop games in the past, but they're kind of my friend whose house it was is kind of pulling them back in, and so it's good. VJ Morph asks, Adam, did you see Mel the Terrain Tutor did an unboxing of the new Seraphon terrain piece? He seems pretty excited that GW want to work with him. It's cool seeing him excited again. No, I hadn't. Maybe he shared on Facebook that he had the new terrain piece that's got the weird lightning on the top. But I haven't seen his video about it though. But that's cool. I'm glad that they're reaching out to him. The Animaster says, by the way, Adam, credit where credit is due. Thank you for that battle report. I actually watched it 3 times. Well, that's a lot. I appreciate that. I think you've got the formula almost complete. Well, I don't know about that. The battle report turned out better than, well, no, it did not. Diesel has the hiccups. It turned out okay. And the second one that I filmed, which you guys haven't seen yet, should be better. And then hopefully the third one after that should be better yet. I've got the next one you guys will see. Many of the suggestions that I got in the comments for the first one will not be taken into account into the second one because the second one was filmed before I published the first one. So I can't go back in time and fix some of those things. But there is a dice tray, so that helps. And I used a different camera. And so the focus will probably be better. And it's this camera here, actually. It's right here. So it's this Canon. It's a big honkin' kind of handy cam. But the big benefit is the record button's back here. So you go beep, beep, and I can even make it beep when I push the button. So hopefully that third turn completely lost all the shooting phase thing won't happen again. But yeah, the reason for this camera, honestly, is these things right here. These are what are called XLR ports, and this is what I plug the 2 receivers into that then allow me to use the what do you call them? The headset microphone? No, not the headset microphones. Lapel mics. So you can hear both me and the opponent pretty well. And so this was a requirement for a camera. The camera I used in the first one also has these on top, but it's a normal. I don't have one here, but it's a normal camera. With interchangeable lenses and all that kind of jazz. Panasonic GH5, if you're into camera crap. So there's that. But yeah. Craft Logic says, speaking of Legion, have you picked up an ATST? Yes, I have. They look amazing and quite large. I'm thinking about picking one up just for a cool diorama project. They are great models. I have not built mine yet. It's not part of my 800-point list, but I do own one, and I am looking forward to painting it. There were a lot of really nicely painted ones when I was at LVO, and I took some pictures, put them on Instagram, and I really liked them. So, let me see here. I love how X-Wing was so affordable and easy to get into, came pre-painted. Yet I'm starting down the price. I'm starting down the price of 2 fighters for a bunch of space bug fodder, cannon fodder. I still gotta build from scratch. Yeah. So one of the reasons that X-Wing did so well, besides the fact that it's Star Wars, is also the fact that it was something that you could just pick up and start playing because you didn't have to build anything, which was great. And I totally get that. And it was a good game, and I still own a bunch of my stuff, but I never made the jump into the 2.0 version of the game. So I've just got a tackle box full of X-Wings and A-Wings and TIE Fighters and junk like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what caused me to not make that jump. I think partially it's because in my local area, for the most part, it's a pretty competitive scene for X-Wing, for whatever reason. And because of that, I'm not interested in playing in tournaments, so that's part of why I haven't been playing. I've got one friend that I used to play against pretty much all the time, but he's been not really playing tabletop games much lately. So his father passed away, and so he had to do a lot of work at the estate and his house, and all that kind of stuff and all that jazz. So I have not, unfortunately, seen him much lately. So that's part of the reason why we haven't been playing X-Wing. Even if we did get together and play X-Wing, we'd probably still be playing version 1.0. But, that's... Yeah, I just didn't want to go out and buy X amount of those upgrade packs to upgrade a game that I'm not really playing much, And that's the cool thing about tabletop, is if you don't want to upgrade, you don't have to. Video games, you kind of have to, because the server changed and now the old version doesn't work, or something like that, so... Jason says, referring to the battle report being better, true nobility is being better than who you were. Well, I'll hopefully try to be doing that. Hey, Adam, do you ever watch Little Wars on YouTube? I think, yes, I believe I've seen their channel. Love their battle report format. Would love to see the same format of other wargame genres. I don't think I've watched any of their battle reports. I've watched them talk about... I think I watched them talk about their channel a couple of times, like a video about their videos or about their YouTube channel, and maybe an interview one time, but I don't know that I've watched any of their battle reports. I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't watch a lot of battle reports because I'm just not a competitive player. The battle reports that I do watch, I watch them because I find the people who make the battle reports enjoyable to watch. Probably my favorite battle reports out there are Tabletop Tactics. Lawrence and Bone and Beard and Stig and Chef and all those folks. That's I enjoy watching them interact, and then the game is kind of secondary for me. But Dingo asks, Adam, do you ever use pastel chalks in weathering? I don't. No. Well, no. I own some pastel chalks that I was going to use for weathering, but then I think I just bought weathering compounds instead, weathering pigments. To be fair, I don't even know where those chalks are. I do remember I bought some one time because someone was like, oh, you just rub it on a piece of sandpaper and then you make your own weathering stuff. And I started to try it. This is easily a decade ago, and it just made a huge mess. So I either bought the wrong stuff or I wasn't doing it right or whatever. But it was a giant mess. So as it turns out, it's slightly easier to use pre-ground, pigments, which is what I did. But yeah, I have not tried using the other stuff. Let me see here. Zebu Nation says, X-Wing 2.0 was such a mistake. Everyone I know stopped playing when it came out. From what I understand, it was a necessity because the rules had gotten so squirrely, specifically for competitive play. But I also do know a lot of people who stopped playing when 2.0 came out. Mikal says, same here. I own X-Wing First Edition and never got into 2.0. No one to play with in my group. So it it did, and it's going to very frequently, new editions of things, not always. It's interesting because like new editions, like when they went from 7th to 8th in 40K, they saw a huge uptick. So new editions don't always cause that trouble, but I think it's because miniatures players and X-Wing players are technically kind of different people. There were a lot of people at my local shop that were playing X-Wing, and that was their first ever war game, which is great. But they were playing it because they didn't have to build it and paint it. And a lot of them were Magic players. So when the new stuff came along, a lot of them were like, well, wait, I got to buy all these new boxes? Now, as Magic players, you're used to buying new stuff all the time. So I was kind of surprised that at the balk, there being like, well, no, I'm not going to buy new stuff. Like, but you're a Magic player. That's all you do is buy new stuff. That's kind of the point, unless you get into Commander real hard. Anyway, my point is that the people that I knew that were Magic players at my local shop that were playing X-Wing, I cannot think of a single one of them that jumped into 2.0. There are still plenty of people playing in my local area. They're playing competitively. A lot of them are big Star Wars fans, and a lot of them are also miniatures players in general, and they're playing. But the people that I knew that I was like, oh, it's so interesting to see this Magic player that I see playing Magic all the time, and now they're playing X-Wing. That's so cool. I did not see any of them jump into 2.0 that I remember. Now, I'm not at the shop constantly, so maybe they're just there when I'm not there, but I haven't seen it generally. Sauce 1101 says X-Wing 2.0, Legion, Marvel Crisis, and Bolt Action are the 4 games occupying tables most often at my store. Well, that's really cool. I see Legion a little bit at our local store. I don't ever see Bolt Action at our local store, and I don't ever see Marvel Crisis at our local store. Our local store doesn't even sell it. Well, the one that I go to. The other store across town, I'm pretty sure sells it because they sell everything. They have a huge selection. But Marvel Crisis... the local store that I go to, I don't even think currently carries it. So I don't know how well it's been doing or anything like that. Like it's been literally like I've been in a bubble. I've only ever seen Marvel Crisis for the most part at conventions since it was announced last year, like at Gen Con. Nobody, like I said, I don't know anybody around here who's playing it. So let me see here. I'm thinking of switching to Army Painter washes from the GW washes. Any perspectives as to the difference? I feel as if the Army Painter washes are maybe a little bit more dense, which makes them potentially a touch more like a glaze. Also, and I like Army Painter stuff quite a bit, and I generally like dropper bottles, but I don't generally like dropper bottles for washes, because I like to just dip my brush into the wash and then rub it on the model. You know what I mean? I don't like to put washes onto my wet palette. It's just a thing. I did recently get somebody in chat a while back. Somebody suggested that because I was talking about how like I wish I had tiny little dishes to like put some wash in, because right now I was just like putting a dab of wash like on pieces of plastic and then hoping it doesn't run off onto my pants and and whatnot and all that kind of stuff. And so that's where I've been putting my washes that are in dropper bottles. Someone recently suggested, they're like, well, why don't you just go on Amazon and get those little tiny plastic cups that tattoo artists use. They put drops of the ink in there, and then they put a tattoo gun in there, and they go burp, 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 and then they poke it on you, and then they put the ink into your arm. And so I did that, and it's actually pretty great. They're tiny little plastic cups, and I think I got 1,000 of them for like $13 shipped. So I was like, spectacular. So yeah, that's what I've been doing lately, instead of having just weird pieces of plastic all over my work area that have got weird dots of different colored glazes and washes. So long story short, I generally still stick with the Holy Trinity from GW. I still generally stick with the Nuln Oil, the Agrax Earthshade, and the Seraphim Sepia. But I do use a lot of other washes from Secret Weapon washes and from, Secret Weapon Miniatures, they make washes. And also Army Painter, I do like to use their like Strong Tone and Warm Tone for specific things. But I do feel that they are a little bit more dense, so they don't act exactly the same as GW washes. So when I know I want something that's a little bit more dense, then I go with the Army Painter stuff. So, yep. 6-2 make 4 says, I've not tried Kill Team yet. Curious what is wrong with it, as all people play here is Kill Team, 40k, AOS, and Magic the Gathering. I like Kill Team. I want to just lead off by saying that. When I say that the rules have got me flummoxed, it is some sort of specific rules that I don't understand. We had a long discussion about this yesterday at the event that I was at. And by event, I mean we hung out in my friend's basement and had some snacks and played Kill Team. Okay, so let me find my book. Here we go. So my main issue is with the injury roll. The injury roll is something that's basically specific to Kill Team. It is not, there's no injury roll like that in 40k. So Kill Team is very much like 40k, for those of you who haven't played it. You've got your ballistic skill, your weapon skill, you've got your strength, your toughness, your attacks, your wounds, like all that kind of stuff. It's very much like 8th edition. It starts with the move characteristic, so it tells you how far they move, all that kind of jazz. So let's say I'm going to shoot at you with a gun in Kill Team. So I shoot you with a gun, so I have to roll to hit. So I hit. Now I have to roll to wound. I wound. There are people out there who are already saying, well, that's stupid. Well, it's the way that it's been, and I know that's a terrible answer. They may change things down the road, but being the biggest dog out there and being the biggest game system out there, change is slow. If they decide to eventually make a 9th edition, I could see 9th edition starting to pick up some things from Kill Team that, as opposed to being the other way around. Like, for one thing, I think movement might be a little bit more like it is in Kill Team, where I move all my army and then you move all your army. But then when we get into shooting, it's unit, 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 as opposed to the way it is in 40k now, where, oh, I get to go first, I do my entire turn, and then you do your entire turn. I get the feeling that sooner or later, maybe it's 9th, maybe it's 10th edition at 40k, I don't know, they're going to start picking up stuff that you have in Kill Team where there's a little bit more alternating back and forth, because it just keeps people more engaged. Like, just raise a hands. How many people here have gone and gotten a sandwich when it's not their turn? I mean, like, or snacks or whatever. I mean, it's you can be standing around for a long time and only rolling saves once in a while. So anyway, but that's not the issue. So you shoot, you hit, you wound, great. Then they have to take their saving throw, their armor save. So take their armor save against whatever your weapon is, all that stuff. Okay, so now you have injured them. Now you have to make an injury roll. Now in normal 40k, if I do 3 damage and you have 4 wounds because you're a super big badass, well, now you have 1 wound left. I've taken 3 of your wounds. If I do 1 wound worth of damage to you and you only have 1 wound, you are now dead. That's how that works. In this, you can still have multiple wounds. Like, Primaris have 2 wounds. Regular attack Marines have 1 wound. That kind of stuff. We were playing with, we had a Tyranid player yesterday who had, like, I think 3 or 4 wounds on their warriors. 3 wounds, I think. So when you've gotten rid of that last wound, we now have to take an injury roll. We don't just say that guy's dead. And the injury roll is designed so that you roll a 6-sider. And on a 1, 2, or a 3, you take a flesh wound, which is like, I'm wounded now, I'm not dead. On a 4, 5, or 6, you're gone. You're not necessarily dead, but you're off the board. If you're playing a campaign game, we decide after that particular mission is done, did that person die? Are they okay? Did they get better? Do they have a limp now? That kind of thing. But you're out of action. You're gone. You're off the board. If the person that you were shooting at, let's say, was in cover, then the injury roll goes from, instead of 1, 2, 3, you've got a flesh wound, 4, 5, 6, you're dead, to 1, 2, 3, 4, you've got a flesh wound, and 5, 6, you're dead. Okay. Where it starts to get squirrely is when you use a gun that either has multiple shots or multiple damage. And this is where I screwed it up in the first battle report. So, if you shoot a gun, let's say it's Assault 3. So it's basically you're firing it and it gets to do 3 shots. You throw 3 dice. Let's say you're very lucky and you get 3 hits. Now you get 3 wounds as well. And then let's say that they're very unlucky, or they've got some sort of 6-up t-shirt save, and all their armor doesn't do anything, and now you've got basically 3 shots from this single gun, but they're 3 separate shots that have penetrated all the way through and are going to do damage and injury to your whatever, your dude. And let's say your dude has only got one wound. The way that I now understand it, which does not make sense to me, is that if I hit you with 3 bullets, one of them takes away your wound, and then that triggers an injury roll. Those 2 other shots don't matter. So you get 1 injury roll. So I roll a die, and then 1, 2, 3, or 4, depending on whether you're in cover, which you're probably in cover. 1, 2, 3, 4, you get a flesh wound. 5, 6, you're dead. But if I hit you with a single shot that does multiple damage, so let's say I shoot a crack missile at you, and I don't know, does a crack missile do 6? Let's just say a crack missile does 6. I don't remember if it does or not. And let's say, again, you have 1 hit point. That seems to be what you call overkill, but whatever, there's no kill like overkill. So you fire this crack missile, you hit, you wound, they don't make their armor save, blah, 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 all that stuff, and now I have an injury roll. So I'm going to do 6 damage, but it's from 1 single shot. The way that I now understand the rules to read is that I get to roll 6 dice for the injury roll and then take the highest one. And that just seems confusing that 1 really powerful shot does more damage than 6. Especially when any one of those 6 shots, like if you had a gun that's shot 6 times, any one of those shots could technically kill you, especially if you only had a 1 wound model. Now, obviously, if you're fighting against some sort of creature like a big Tyranid warrior that's got 3 wounds, or maybe even 4, or depending on whatever you got going on in kill team, there's a benefit to firing that crack shot, because you're going to get rid of those 3 shots, and then you're going to have X amount of shots left over. It's very confusing to me with why that happens that way. And we had a long discussion about it, and we basically ended up with the answer of well, it's kind of abstract. This game is not realistic. No tabletop game is realistic. Any tabletop game that would be realistic would be boring, way wicked boring, super boring, and take forever to happen. Even video games aren't particularly realistic. How many times have you been shot 5 times and you're okay? You run across a health pack and then everything's better. That's not how the way things work. But it just is very the reason that we goofed things up in the first battle report was just because it seems counterintuitive, that particular thing. I say what you will about the hit and then wound and then save and then all that stuff. And heck, I frequently play Death Guard, so I've also got a disgustingly resilient roll in there a lot frequently too. Yesterday I never made a disgustingly resilient roll, sadly. I think I used them all up at some point, but the injury roll to me, when you first read it, I thought we were doing it the other way, and then there was an FAQ that came out, and there's even been, I think that they might have touched on it in here as well, but I don't remember. But it still, to me, seems kind of the other way around and kind of confusing, and that's what had me flummoxed, frankly. And I don't, there's all these weird little things that pop up sometimes in certain games, and I'm not just blaming GW in this situation. Lots of games have got, it's very difficult, I think, to write a clear rules system, but you would sometimes expect that a big game written by a big company would be clearer. But yeah, so let me know in the comments if what I just explained either A, made any sense, or B, made sense but was totally wrong. Again, we all could have been doing it wrong yesterday. But it seems weird to me that the way that those rules are written, and the injury roll, I think, is for me the hardest part of Kill Team. Morale, totally get it, makes sense. All the rest of the stuff, it's basically just it's the same stuff we've been using in 40K for years. So it all gets, strength versus toughness. Yeah, if anything, in 8th edition and in Kill Team, they've simplified it, which makes it a lot easier now. Because it used to be that weird chart that was a little squirrely, but now it's just very simple and easy to use. So yeah, I just realized that all this stuff was running. Oh, let's see here. What's going on? It looks like there's somebody. Okay, I got to report that and that. Okay, and I need to remove. Okay, how do I just straight up block somebody? Why can't I do that? I apologize to you folks. I didn't realize that while I was talking. Here we go. There we go. Look at that. That's great. All right. Why do bots show up when I'm talking? Well, I suppose there's a lot of people here, so there's that. So anyway, I apologize for that, and there you go. So I've gotten rid of that, hopefully. Let's see here. I'm going to have to rewatch this section. I have no idea what Adam said. I'm so distracted by the toaster. I apologize, Emily. I love playing games wrong because that's how I roll, says Blade and Bush, or Brush. Okay, well, that makes sense. Warcry rules are much more well established. Also, I don't know what it is, but complements narrative campaign marvelously. I think that what makes Warcry work very well for campaigns is that it's a simpler system and it's very short. You know, like the games can be pretty short and the system's simpler. My main problem with Warcry, honestly, is that I don't like the icons. I know they did it because they wanted to make it available in more languages or something like that, but there are so many icons you have to try to remember, and some of them are so similar that you just look at these cards and go, I don't know what that... Like, I honestly want to go through all my cards and just start writing words on them so I know what the heck's going on, because the iconography is difficult in that situation. That's the way that works. Let me see. I'm currently thinking of starting. What should I focus first? Kill Team or 40k? I mean, honestly, you might want to start into Kill Team, because the benefit there is you can start out by building smaller armies and then decide whether you like that army. And if you do, then you can keep going and adding more to it and eventually have a 40k army. If you start it with 40k, you've got to build kind of a big army to start. And if it turns out you don't like that army particularly, then you're already done a bunch of work potentially. So Kill Team's nice because it allows you to start out and go, well, I just want to try out these guys. And then, you know, the max models you can have in any given battle on your side is, I think, 20. So that's not that many models. Yeah. Steve says that work is lame. Need to go home and hobby. Well, yeah. Just picked up some Necrons yesterday. I'm planning on running for Kill Team. Necrons are fun, I think, in Kill Team. Let me see here. People talking about the porn bot. Again, I apologize about that. I should be, yeah. If you want reasonably balanced and well-written rules, you want the medium-sized companies. The small ones don't have the budget for proofreading. The big ones rely on name recognition. I mean, sometimes, yeah. You know, I mean, like, one of the things that, to make a rules set very clear, you have to, and this is, you have to write in short sentences and you have to over-explain everything. Because people will say, oh, well, it doesn't say here I can't do that, if you decide to not say that they can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to write something that seems like some really nice prose, that's great, but it's lousy for rules. You have to be very specific and spell everything out, and you have to write in short sentences. Because if you write in a long sentence that may be grammatically correct, people who look at grammar different ways will take that sentence in different ways. I clunked the mic, sorry. So that's kind of an important thing to keep track of. To be perfectly honest, the rules for War Machine, because that game was focused a good deal on competitive play from the kind of get-go, the rules were generally sort of clear. At the time when it came out, those rules were clearer than GW's rules at that time, like talking like 4th, 5th edition. I'm sure there's somebody here who already now is scoffing at the idea that War Machine had clear rules, but really in comparison to some other companies at the time, it's, I have not looked at 3rd edition or 3rd Mark III, whatever they call the current edition of War Machine. I don't know if the rules are clearer now or not, but I do remember talking to people and stuff who had played both 40K and War Machine, and they were like, oh, the War Machine rules are clear because they write short sentences and they spell everything out very specifically because they don't want people to go, well, I think this sentence means this. They want it to be very clear. So when you read it, you go, well, I know what that means. It makes for dull reading, admittedly, but the rules are... I think it's partially what you're starting to see a lot, especially in, like let's say, Age of Sigmar. When you're looking at the War Scrolls for Age of Sigmar, they will have a rule, and there will be, like, italicized text at the top, which is the fluff and the blah, blah, blah. And then at the bottom, they will be like, this is the rule, and they spell things out pretty well. I think that's a smart play, honestly, on the part of the Age of Sigmar team. Let me see. Like writing instructions to a student. Indeed, yes, exactly. I mean, this person is a student of the game. That's exactly the case. Warcry has been a great entry level for my 8-year-old. Simple to get started with War Scrolls and icons. That's, yeah, I mean, again, like the icons, if you can keep track of them and you can pay attention to them properly and keep them all set in your head, then there's a benefit to that because it's less reading. But I don't know. That's just my own personal issue. I am starting to work on building the terrain and stuff that came in the Warcry box, and I'm going to be eventually down the road hopefully doing some battle reports on that. I've built my Corvus Cabal, and I'm going to build some Night Haunts for Warcry, and I'm also going to build the Iron Golems. Those are at least my 3 teams that I'm thinking about right now. Or, well, more than thinking about. Alan says, one of the things I don't like about the Kill Team Core rulebook is the back and forth between pages, like the part where it says the player controlling the model makes the injury roll. That part I've read, and it's not... Basically what they're talking about is that if you hurt yourself, then the character controlling the model who hurt themselves gets to roll the injury roll. But the way they wrote it, it made it seem like that happened in all situations. I understand where the disconnect came from. It looked like if someone shot you, you're like, okay, and I got injured, cool, I get to roll the injury roll, because it says right here. But what it was talking about in context, if I remember correctly, was it was talking like if you fall off a building and hurt yourself or whatever, then you roll the injury roll, not your opponent. But then the way that and they had to fix that in one of the FAQs because it wasn't clear, and there was nothing spelled wrong. So in some situations, sometimes that's as far as they kind of look sometimes. Like when they got the little red underline under the text, then it is like, oh, that's spelled wrong. Okay, cool. Or, oh, that word is a real word. It's just, the computer doesn't recognize it because it's Ideneth Deepkin or whatever. Great. But there's other times when you read it and you go, it's kind of a forest for the trees. No, maybe that's not the right term. If you're too close to something, and you read it and go, this makes total sense, and then someone else has to read it who has no idea what you're talking about and go, so this is what you meant? And then you're like, well, no. And you're like, well, that's what it says. Years and years ago, a friend of mine and I wrote a game. It's kind of a gateway game, frankly, because it was sort of a little board gamey, but it also a little bit miniatures. And we sat down and we spent weeks and weeks, if not months, working on the rules and all this stuff. And one of the things we did was all right, we're going to give all the rules to some friends of ours, and then we're going to send them down. We were in college. Send them down to the study lounge area on this floor, and then they're going to sit and play it and come back and give us information, some feedback. They were back in about a couple of minutes, and then they said, "Okay, we've got 2 questions," and we're like, "All right, well, what is it?" Number 1, how do you start the game? And number 2, how do you win the game? So we had written rules for initiative and combat and movement and all this stuff. But how you start and how you finish, we'd never bothered because we knew how these things work. We just didn't write it down. When you're too close to it, it's very simple to look at the rules and go, yep, that's right. Everything's spelled right. And that's perfectly explained. But then it's when you get somebody who doesn't know what you're talking about and they read it and they go, so you mean this? And then, no, obviously not. Well, that's what it says. If you get too close to things, sometimes it's hard to proofread your own stuff, I guess is the long... and the short of it. Trey Baker says, I agree that Infinity has great support, but I have to spend way too much time applying modifiers to a single shot because it's modified by range, environment, and stacking war gear. Yeah, I mean, Infinity's rules have never quite hooked into me particularly. Modifiers I don't mind. That's another thing that's different between say 40k and Kill Team is that there are modifiers that are specific, like that don't happen in 40k. Like that whole my gun shoots 24 inches, but if I shoot at anybody that's outside of half range, say 12 inches or less, then I have a -1 modifier to hit. And if they're in cover, I have another, that kind of thing. So those things are a little different in Kill Team, but a couple of modifiers you get very quickly to understand. Like the person who was on my team yesterday, we were just playing for fun. He's not a miniatures player at all. This was his first time playing Kill Team. He's a Dungeons and Dragons, like an RPG folk player. And so, it took a little bit of time, but once we'd been playing for a while, like he would like look at something and go, okay, well, it's more than half range and you're in cover, so that's going to add 2. I need a 4 to hit, which means I'm only hitting on 6s. That kind of stuff. You can pick up on it pretty quickly. If there are a lot more modifiers, it makes the game more realistic, sort of, but not really. You know what I mean? It slows things down so much that now it takes forever for anything to happen, which is a little bit less than realistic. You know what I mean? So, Lois says, I started playing Kill Team recently, and I have to say the shaken, broken, and morale phase as a whole is very difficult to understand. It might be because I run Tyranids, though. Well, you got the whole synapse wackadoo, so I don't even understand. They're the next ones on my paint table, is the Tyranids. They are currently built, their bases are textured, and they are primed, and so I'm going to paint them next. And then I'm going to have to figure out how to play them. So yeah, they play a little differently than everybody else. So yeah. Eric asks, hi Uncle Adam, have you ever tried Saga as a game? No. I know what the game is, or I know of it. I have not played Saga. I know people who do. There's a decent amount of it that gets played at Adepticon, but I don't know that there's anybody in my local area really that plays it. In Wisconsin, yes, but in like where I live in Wisconsin, not so much. I haven't seen that. Volzen says, 2 weeks ago I was starting on my Death Guard kill team and I had just finished my first Plague Marine and quickly came down with stomach flu. Unsure if Papa Nurgle blessed me or doesn't want me to play Death Guard. Well, Papa Nurgle always wants you to play Death Guard. But it could have been a blessing. Or something you ate that was bad. That happens too. Let me see. Brian Griffith says, really have to thank you today. When I woke up, I was out of whack from the time change and feeling unmotivated. Put on the stream, and now I'm accomplishing the hobby I intended. Spectacular. You're doing good work. So glad to hear it. Absolutely. The Hooligan Bear says, Infinity is the game I really want to like, but it's too much of a gacha game. If you aren't up on all the rules, you'll get blindsided and wrecked too easily. At least that's what I've heard. That may be true, I think, to some degree. There is a lot of gacha. Like the game is designed that way. Like I'm gonna run from this building to this building, and then someone's like, I get to shoot at you as you run across because I can see you. And if you're not paying attention to that, that's how you can get got. And games like like 40k don't. Basically, the only time that you get to shoot somebody that's not on your turn is if they attack you specifically, like in Overwatch. They charge you, you get to shoot them. Otherwise, they can run around and whatever, and you don't get to fire on them. And the whatever they call that, OROs, or IROs, whatever the thing that they do, AROs, and whatever. Those things that they do in Infinity, where you basically get to interrupt and then shoot people who run from building to building. It's realistic, it makes sense, but it does sort of slow things down, at least in my mind it seems to. I'm sure as you get better at it, you get used to it, and it makes a lot of sense, but there is some gacha like that. I get that, definitely. I mean, any game where you don't understand the rules, there'll be gacha because you're like, oh, I'm going to do this thing, and someone's like, yeah, you can't do that thing, or, well, that means I get to do this, and then that can be kind of a gacha as well. But it does seem like there's a little bit more of that sometimes in Infinity. I've tried playing Infinity a couple of times, like had done demos and stuff like that. Most recent time actually was with Sam, because Sam's a fan of Infinity, and there's some rules in there that just rub me a little bit the wrong way. And I'm not saying it's a bad game. It seems to be a great game. I did just recently have somebody tell me that the models are getting better because they've always been gorgeous, but they've also been metal and in the old days, lots and lots and lots and lots of pieces. The only Infinity model that I've ever actually built to completion was there was this mercenary guy that came. If you bought a Battle Foam Infinity bag, and this was almost 10 years ago, if you bought a Battle Foam Infinity bag, you got this one mercenary guy. And like, I kid you not, he's like a normal 28 millimeter scale dude, and he's got like 16 or 17 pieces, and he's metal. And he was amazingly hard to build. And when I told this friend of mine about that, he's like, "Oh yeah, that's probably one of the worst. That's not a good first model for you to build for Infinity." And he said that nowadays, many of the Infinity models, even though they're still metal, are like 3 or 4 pieces, which is better. But yeah, I should take a look at the Infinity models again. And for God's sakes, why is this? I don't understand what's going on here. All right, so Toaster's gone again. Apologize again for that. Let's see here. Kelly says, I agree about the Infinity models. With spinal cord injury hands, Infinity models are heinous to put together. Yeah, I can understand that. Dave Inspiration says, 40K has gotcha with stratagems. Some armies can shoot reinforcements. You know, yeah, that's the other thing that's sort of... When I play Kill Team, we don't use too many stratagems. We probably should, and it probably makes a more competitive game. It also might make things a touch more interesting. Maybe, maybe not. Like we use the reroll stratagems and stuff like that, but all the other stratagems we don't frequently use that much. And those can, to me personally, sometimes feel a little gotcha. You know what I mean? So there's that. Escaped Prisoner says, I believe Sam's first Infinity game was with me. Well, that's fun. Let's see here. Infinity is a painter's game, according to Derek. I mean, the models do look amazing. From a person just like looking from the outside, they look amazing. They are of a very specific style. Like everything is not anime, like big eyes, kind of like Catgirl anime, but like more... I don't know, like almost like Robotech kind of like anime a little bit. You know what I mean? Like that style where everyone's in cool poses and it's all it's all very technological and robotic and whatever. Anyway. Let's see here. Martin says, I've only played X-Wing, but I have been checking out minis and your Kill Team videos. Seems skirmish is easier to pick up, and being able to grow into 5 squad teams is nice. Yeah, no, skirmish games, I very much believe that skirmish games are the best way to get into wargaming in this day and age. Like, you know, X-Wing's great. Like, it teaches you things about, like, line of sight, range, you know, like sequenced movement, things like that. It's a great gateway game, I think, into wargaming. But if you want to get into wargaming, one of the greatest gateway games, I made a video about this last year at some point, was probably something like Warhammer Underworlds. So nowadays it's Beastgrave, but there was originally Shadespire, and then there was Night Vault, I think, and then now it's Beastgrave. And that game has still got some sort of board gaminess to it, but it's also got miniatures, and it's kind of teaching and that kind of stuff. And then if you do decide to go into Age of Sigmar, those models can go into Age of Sigmar as well. They have war scrolls for them all. If you're more interested in the sci-fi bent, then Kill Team's a great place to start, in my opinion. Don't misunderstand. Sometimes the rules flummox me, and specifically that particular set of rules about the injury rolls, I still have a hard time wrapping my head around it. Especially, and we had this happen at one point, Tau, of course. Someone fired a gun that fired multiple shots, and each shot does multiple damage. Well, then the injury rolls got real confusing, and so I still think we did it wrong. I'm pretty sure we did. That all being said, I have a Tau army already, or a Kill Team built. They're just not textured or primed yet. And they are a little gross. Like that railgun that the kind of snipery sort of dude gets to use, that ain't right. That especially for a 12-point figure that's got like a strength 8 weapon that does it just it's gross, just super gross. Anyway, so that's why I'm looking forward to running my Tau eventually. I guess. Eltros says, recently picked up the 2-player starter box, and the models have been pretty easy. I think we're talking about Infinity here. Was pretty worried about working with metal. Oh yeah, probably Infinity. And was pleasantly surprised. Did use an accelerant for gluing, though. Accelerant is super important when you're using metal models. That's true. For those of you who don't know, accelerant is kind of usually like a little pump spray that you spray onto your CA glue, your super glue, to make it harden up real fast. So you're not having to sit there and hold these two parts for 4 minutes or so, whatever. You can kind of get them set all up, and then it's sometimes hard to do because you need them in 3 hands. But yeah, that's how you get the glue to firm up faster, is with accelerant. So there's that. Yeah, like I said, the person I talked to at LVO is a friend of mine, or a guy, or acquaintance at the very least, very nice guy. And I've seen him at some shows recently, and we were talking about Infinity, and he was saying that the newer models are easier to build than the older models. So I should probably pick up some and try them out. I could use them for other games. I could use them for Star Breach, honestly. If I'm like some cool, sort of sci-fi looking dudes and use them for Star Breach, there's nothing wrong with that. Kelly says, I will buy the new Infinity starter if it is at Adepticon. I love the models, just wish they were not metal. Yeah, most people generally kind of, it seems at least, and I'm sure there's somebody out there who's going to say, well, not me, but most people do prefer plastics over metals, but plastics are incredibly expensive to produce. Well, the setup is. Making the molds is incredibly expensive. Actually producing the plastic afterwards is quite cheap. But it's the molds that big upfront cost is problems. The Animaster says, so even if you don't use that army, GW wants you to buy their army book to spy on their tactics. That's one of the reasons also that I love Kill Team, is because when I buy the Kill Team book, it has everybody else's stuff in it. So like yesterday when we were playing, and I was playing against the Tau, I could be like, is he kidding me? And then I could go look at the Tau and go, oh wow, he's not kidding me, because it was right there in the book. That's another, yeah. Say what you will about like 40K, and it's great, but there's a lot of books that are involved. A lot of books, because you got to have the main book, and then you got to have, nowadays, what do they call it? Chapter approved, which, and then but you got to have the codex. And if you're a competitive player, you need to kind of have everybody's codex so you understand how everything works. And with Kill Team, you basically need this book. And if you do want to keep up, then this is something okay. But there's a lot of stuff in here which is really beneficial. You can totally choose whether you want to get into elites or commanders. We play a little bit with elites amongst the people that I know once in a while. I got to be honest, I've not yet. Well, that's not true. I played one game with commanders. I had plans to do more, but it's just not taken off in our area. But elites is not bad, so there's that. Warcry is a quick game, but like Adam said, Beastgrave is a great gateway. Yeah, absolutely. I think that they really are. Leslie says, even if you did not play the rules completely correctly, did you both enjoy the game and leave as friends? Oh, absolutely. And that is the biggest thing. That being said, when you are doing it on a battle report, I try to get the rules as right as possible, partially because I'm trying to teach people a little bit about how to play the game. And I've already had lots of people who say, hey, I really appreciate the battle report because I've learned more about how to play Kill Team, and that's great. So doing it right, I think, is important. Also, it just then cuts down on all the comments from people saying, hey, you did this wrong, hey, you did this wrong, hey, you did this wrong. And very frequently, it's the same thing I did wrong repeatedly. Like, no one ever looks at the comments and says, did somebody else point out that he did that wrong at this time? He did, yes. They pointed it out, so I don't need to. People just, which is human nature. So that's why I try to get things right if I can. I think it's a big benefit. Escaped Prisoner says, yeah, Infinity updated to 3D sculpting, which I think makes the engineering so much easier. Oh, yeah. No, 3D sculpting almost always makes the engineering of the actual production way easier. So that's cool. Uncle Adam, do you ever go back to older games? I recently brought out my Dust Tactics stuff to introduce my son to wargaming, and even picked up cheaply priced mechs from Facebook buy-sell page. Well, like I mentioned before, if a friend of mine and I, if my friend Eric and I are going to sit down and play X-Wing, we're going to play 1.0 rules instead of 2.0 rules, so that's kind of older. I still have a bunch of Dust stuff. I was never into Dust Tactics, the like more kind of grid-based board gamey thing. I was really into Dust Warfare, which was a rule set written by Mac Martin and Andy Chambers, which I think was spectacular. Now you've got Dust 1947, which is predominantly played on the grid thing, but I don't enjoy the grid play at all, but I still love the models. But you can also play it gridless, and then it becomes more like a traditional miniatures game. But I have not yet played, like, you can download the book for free for Dust 1947, which I think is great. And I would really like to play, potentially, with some folks in the area, try out Dust 1947, playing gridless, whatever you want to call it. But it hasn't really happened lately, so that's been just the way it kind of works. So yeah, I don't generally play older games. I use older models, but I don't too frequently play older games, I guess. Do you feel Elites and Commanders splits the game groups relating to Kill Team? Not particularly, because it's easy enough. Like, if you've decided I will only ever play games with Commanders, I will never play another game of Kill Team without using Commanders, then maybe, yeah, you've sort of painted yourself into a corner a little bit. You walk into your local shop or you walk into your friend group and go, well, okay, let's all sit down and play some Commanders. And if everyone's like, I don't want to. Well, then if you've decided you're only ever going to play Commanders, then you've split yourself from the gaming group. I like the option of being able to use the books or choose not to. Like yesterday when we played our 2 versus 2 games, we were playing with what do you call it? We were playing with 100-point lists, so it was 2 100-point lists on each side, but we were using sub-factions from Elites, but that's about it. So the Tau had a sub-faction. I was playing against Tau and Space Marines, Primacy. They were using a sub-faction. I think they were using Ultramarines. And then I think there was a sub-faction that was on Tyranids, and I was already playing Death Guard, so they are their own sub-faction. So there's no sub-factions within Death Guard that I can tell. So I get like inexorable advance and stuff like that. But we weren't playing with any of the elite models because we were playing 100-point lists. But we could have. I had brought elite lists. That's the thing that's nice, is that it's not that difficult to just swap things out a little bit if needs be. So like what the Tau guy showed up with a 100-point list. But then later on, he was going to play a one-on-one against somebody else, and the other person wanted to play elites. So he was just trying to figure out. He's like, okay, cool, I can do that. And so he was just basically figuring out what model he was going to bring in for his elites, and then build that 125. So it's not that big of a deal. Commanders can be a bit of a bigger deal because the commanders can be so expensive points-wise. And I think that's part of why maybe Commanders hasn't taken off. I mean, there are commanders that are straight up almost 200 points by themselves. I think it's the level 4 Broodlord for the Tyranids is like 196, last I looked. So that gives you then, what, like 1 Termagant and a Broodlord, and that's your entire army? I mean, it's sort of weird that way, and I think that's partially why you don't see as many people playing it as much. But Elites, at least around where I live, Elites has taken more hold than Commanders by a long shot. So, absolutely. Martin says, I probably like the painting aspect more, but I'd say you should check out X-Wing 2.0. It's a much more balanced game now because of some of the new rules. And I've heard that, and that's true, but it would cost me, I think, somewhere around $200 to upgrade both my armies. So I kind of don't particularly want to do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's like if I was playing in the competitive scene, it would totally make sense. I get it. But when it's me and my friend Eric playing, it's just not something I see us doing. Martin Liu says, what is Commanders and Elites? So the original book came out, and it's the core manual, and in it you have specific models that every army can take. So I just opened 1,000 Suns. That's what 1,000 Sun looks like. And they can only take Rubric Marines, which are basically their version of Space Marines, and Zangors, which are weird bird people. That's all you can take in that army. Then later on, they came up with a book called Elites, which gives you slightly more powerful models that you can bring in. And there are limits on how many you can bring in, and the point size for the army went from 100 to 125, so you can't bring in a ton of them. But it allowed you, if you wanted to be able to add a little bit more stuff to your army list, potentially. Commanders did the same thing, only it was making these much higher pointed, things. And then the Commander, if you're playing a Commander game, you're supposed to go all the way up to 200 points instead of 125 or 100. So again, they're basically just add-ons. You can choose to buy them or not. In general, if you're playing an Elite's army, I should also be playing an Elite's army. I have seen plenty of people who are like, I want to run Elites, and this person says, I don't have any Elite models. So then this person runs 125 points, including an Elite, and this person runs just 125 points in normal models, and you can give that a try. But yeah, they're basically add-ons to Kill Team that you can choose to use or choose not to. I like the Elites book. I like playing Elites games a little bit more. I still generally like to play basic 100-point core lists, but even when we play 100-point core lists, we do still generally use the sub-factions that are in the Elites book. I don't have the Elites book right handy here. But yeah, so that's kind of how that works. Elijah says, Commanders lets you use some headquarters units from 40k. Elites lets you use things like Terminators and Custodes, stuff like that. Yeah, so slightly more powerful characters and things like that, whereas Commanders allows you to use, like I said, a little bit more along the lines of like HQ folks. Let's see here. What else have we got? Speedy Danny says, hi, I am trying to get into Necrons and Kill Team. Do you have any Necron Kill Teams or any video about Necrons? I do have a Necron Kill Team. I mainly run an Immortal as my leader, and I have another Immortal as my comms specialist. I have a Deathmark as my sniper, although technically he should probably be something else. I sometimes wonder if he shouldn't be demolitions. That's snipers, whatever. Anyway, and then I frequently run another Immortal as a Zealot, I think, or a Veteran. I forget which. And then everything else is basically just warriors. I've not built any elites yet for Necrons, so I've not done any Praetorians or whatever, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, but I enjoy Necrons. They're very simple because you don't have a lot of weapon options. Like Immortals have like 2 weapon options. You've got a little bit of war gear stuff you can tweak, but not a lot. Warriors basically are just warriors. Necrons are sometimes a little fiddly to build, but not too bad. They're very super quick to paint. They're very easy to paint if you want to just go plain old silver. So throw a wash on them. There you go, done. So yeah. Barry says, I found Kill Team a bit rules heavy. Roll after roll after roll. Turn Sukens is better than 40k, but it's not an entry level game in my opinion. Entry level is... Yeah, I could maybe see that. That's true. I mean, like if you've never played tabletop games before, in general, this is probably a tough, especially like if it was like you and a friend decided, hey, for some reason we're going to start playing Kill Team, but we've never played any tabletop games before. That would be a tough one to start. It's a tough climb. Now, if you've played some tabletop games, and I'm talking about tabletop games like board games, RPGs, whatever, you're going to be a little bit further ahead. If you've played any miniatures games before, then I think that Kill Team can certainly be a starter game, easily. But yeah, if you've never played any kind of miniatures game before, ever, it's a bit tougher of a start. Warstein Studios, hey man, I want elites so I can paint cooler models. Yeah, there's a benefit to that too. Honestly, that's the main reason that I was interested in Commanders when it came out. So I'm like, oh, I can paint all these cool command models, all these cool HQ models, and then I'm like, oh wait, that nobody much really plays that. I would still like to do it. I could easily see myself doing a battle report at some point that was basically a Commanders game. So it's 200 points and you got some like kind of interesting Commanders in there. I could see doing that, but we'll see. Martin says, so I can't just bash some characters together for a team just because I like their look. They have to be a specific class. Yeah, so like in Kill Team, they need to be, like depending on, like, so here's the Astra Militarum, aka the Imperial Guard. The models that are available to the Imperial Guard in the core book are Infantry Squad Guardsmen, which are your basic random, your basic guard, and Special Weapons Guardsmen, and then the Militarum Tempestus Scions. So basically, and within each of these data sheets, there are specific models, like you can, under infantry squad guardsmen, you've got guardsman, gunner, and sergeant. So those can be slightly different models, and they can have different weapons and stuff like that, depending. But you have to follow the rules if you want to play the game. It's kind of the way it works. You can't just be like, oh, cool, I'm just going to take all tanks. Well, that's not going to work in Kill Team. There's no vehicles in Kill Team, for the most part. So, yeah. Let me see here. But also, what's the scouting phase? The scouting phase is the thing that almost everybody seems to skip over. That's maybe another bit of an interesting rules thing. So, the scouting phase, the way it's supposed to be played in Kill Team, is that before the game starts, you are then, and I don't know if it's before deployment or after deployment. I don't quite remember, but there's the scouting phase. I think it's after deployment. And you have 6 possible things you can do in the scouting phase. One of them is like you might be able to booby trap a certain piece of terrain. One of them is you might get to, I don't know, they're all goofy kind of rules. And you basically do this sort of like it's an intel thing before the game starts. And then some stuff happens. And maybe like you've made a piece of terrain booby trapped, or maybe you've done this, or maybe you've done that. Maybe you get to make an extra move before the game starts, whatever. Great. I find it very interesting that almost every single tournament that I've ever even heard of just skips over the scouting phase, including like Kill Team 2020 at Adepticon. Those tournaments are just like, we're skipping over the scouting phase. And that's like in the rules from GW, because GW is now working with a lot of the bigger tournaments and stuff like that to give them like these rules packets and stuff like that. Scouting phase, like, nope, taking it out. It gives you extra flavor if you want to get sort of fancy with your kind of campaign play, and that's great. You have that option. We skip it nearly every single game I've ever played. There's been a couple of times when I've been like, all right, we should probably give it a try, and then we do it, and we're like, well, that was not great. It's not my jam. So generally, I skip the scouting phase, and most people that I play with do as well. So there's that. Let's see. Kevin Fowler says it's a real long shot, but I would love if Necron's got plastic flayed ones. I made my own Necron flayed ones. If you go back into my videos, I think from last year, I did a video about... I don't remember what it was called. It was about how to take green stuff and make it incredibly flat. It was this special trick on how to make green stuff really flat. Because I needed to make really flat green stuff, because I was building my own flayed ones. I just took warriors, and I just glued strips of like very thin green stuff to them to make them look like they've been like peeling skin off of humans and then sticking it to themselves, which is what flayed ones are supposed to look like. And then I improvised weapons for them, hand weapons and stuff. They didn't have guns. I'll be darned if I can remember what the heck it's called, that particular episode. But it was something about a green stuff trick, maybe. Basically what I did, here's the green stuff trick if you want to know. You get yourself some parchment paper, some baking parchment paper. It has silicone in it. You take a piece of green stuff, which is very sticky very usually, and you have to either... The way that they used to tell you to do it was to take some saran wrap, put some olive oil in the saran wrap, put the green stuff in there so that the green stuff would not stick to the saran wrap, and then roll over it with like a rolling pin, and then you bring out this very flat piece of green stuff that is now completely coated in olive oil, and it's going to be a real pain in the butt to get that off, so you can now get paint and primer and crap like that to stick to it. And I'm like, I don't want to go down that road. So I just thought, what else does green stuff not stick to? And I knew that silicone is one of the major ingredients in baking parchment, and so I just took a piece of baking parchment, folded it in half like a folder, put a glob of green stuff inside there, rolled over it with not a rolling pin, but a booze bottle, because that's what I had handy. And when I opened the little folder to see my very flat piece of green stuff, the green stuff literally slid out. It didn't stick to anything. So that was great. Gives you lots of options for being able to do all kinds of cool stuff with green stuff. So it's way better than lubing up some saran wrap and going to town that way, at least in my opinion. But I don't know. I can't remember what the heck the name... People are saying they saw that video. I can't quite remember what the name of the video was about, but it had flayed ones in the thumbnail. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly. So there's that. Andrew says, I hate skipping the scouting phase. I play Harlequins, and take forward positions means changes are much more reliable. Skipping the phase hurts. Well, for the Harlequins, I suppose, yeah, I can see that. I don't know. I just, I just rarely ever see any benefit from it. Like I always basically, if I'm going to do it, I'm just going to try to make it where I try to bomb one of the pieces of terrain. So if you get too close to it, you'll maybe potentially possibly blow up. Otherwise, I don't see the benefit. Let's see here. We just played a game with 12 Chaos Cultists. Obviously, that doesn't work with the morale rules as written. I can see that, yeah. They're not designed to really hang around too frequently. So we made house rules where multiple casualties don't add to the negative modifiers. See, then they're not going to go anywhere, in my opinion. Because that's the idea, is that they start taking more casualties, it makes them more and more scared. So they're more likely to run off. Which is probably also why you don't generally run a list of just Chaos Cultists. I mean, you can, but they will probably bolt because they're Chaos Cultists. Yeah, that one's a tough one. Let me see here. Elijah says, my son doesn't have the patience for full 40k, but loves big vehicles, so I made a kill team narrative where his tower trying to sabotage an Imperial Knight under repair by Mechanicus with the Scutari. Well, that's kind of fun. Kevin Fowler says name of the video that I made was called The Easy Trick to Flat Green Stuff Putty. That sounds right. So yeah, do a Google for that, and you'll be able to find it, hopefully. The board that we played on yesterday in the kill team that I did was like those Sector Mechanicus kind of like walkways and stuff like that. But we had two Imperial Knights that kind of looked like they were backed up to the walkways, like so they could get work done. So it looked like a place where they were like being either refitted or re-armored, or adding more ammo. And then the idea was that there was ammo on the top of these walkways, and we were supposed to get up there, and because we were the attackers, we were supposed to blow up these things, and the defenders were supposed to defend it. Unfortunately, the Tau player, nearly his entire army had fly, so he was very quickly on top of that walkway and just shot us off of it. We couldn't get up there, and it didn't work. So not a great mission, as it turned out, for what we were trying to do at the time, but we still had a good time. Trap Lord George says, I love lubing up and going to town. Well, once you said in the video that you build up an orc team. Have you done it already? If yes, which orcs have you put in? I haven't built it yet. I've bought it. It's a lot of Burnaboys and some Grots, because I like Grots, and of course regular boys. Let me see if I can find my... I think I already have a Battlescribe list written for it, so let me see if I can find it. Orcs, the Gretchen leader. Loading very slowly. Okay, so we've got a Gretchen as leader. We've got a Boss Knob as a combat specialist, and that's actually the model where I took the Necromunda Ambot and gave him an orc head. That's actually that model that I built for him. I've got a Demolitions Luda, and I have a Comms Luda Spanner. Those are my specialists, and then I've got 8 non-specialists in the list. Burnaboy, Gretchen, Orc Boy. The Orc Boys all are just Slugga and Choppa. The Burnaboys are Burnaboys, and Gretchens have got like a pistol or whatever. So that's pretty much it. It says here that something's... it says here my roster is over by 6 points. They must have changed. Yeah, so I'm going to have to fix some stuff, because I think some points changed, so now I'm over by 6 points. So that's kind of the start. That's where I'm looking at, but it's basically one Boss Knob, who is basically, like I said, that modified Ambot, where I put an orc head on him and gave him some weapons and stuff. And then it's some Gretchens, some Burnas, and a couple of Ludas, but no commandos, because I don't have any models for the commandos, and that's just the case. They look cool. I wish they made plastic commandos, but they don't. Lobster Skin says, how did they try olive oil before parchment paper? I don't know. Like when I started looking stuff up, every guide I came across was like, okay, we'll get some saran wrap, and then I saw somebody say to use KY jelly because it's water-based, so it's easier to clean off of the green stuff afterwards, which I suppose is probably true. But I've also seen olive oil was one, and I forget something else. And I was just like, now I'm just going to have this slippery piece of green stuff when I'm done. And I'm like, that doesn't seem like a good idea. And I'm like, well, green stuff doesn't stick to silicone. Like nearly nothing sticks to silicone for the most part. So I'm like, I know green stuff doesn't stick to silicone because you use silicone tools to shape it, and then you don't have to get those really wet generally. But if you use like metal tools to shape liquid or green stuff, you have to keep the tools wet, otherwise the green stuff will stick to the tools. So I'm like, all right. And then for whatever reason, I had just been paying attention to parchment paper recently because I had to buy some more parchment paper, baking parchment for my wet palette. And I was looking at it and I was like, oh, there's silicone in this. That's interesting. I didn't know that, but it makes sense. So I was just like, I'll just give it a try. And so I tried it out and it worked pretty darn good as it turned out. And I don't think any of the silicone stuck to the green stuff or anything along those lines. Those models have been painted for a while now and nothing's flaked off yet. So I don't know. Maybe in 3 years all the paint will flake off of the flayed skin on my flayed ones and it'll just look green. And then I'll know. But for right now, everything seems to be fine. I suppose it depends on the primer you use too. Gretchen leader makes my fluff hurt. Well, see, here's why. This is why I want to have a Gretchen leader. So the boss knob, it would make sense that he's the leader, right? That would make sense because he's the biggest and the scariest. But he's had his entire, he's had his head and his orkiness or whatever put into this basically robot body, the Ambot from Necromunda. Now, if you look at the Ambot from Necromunda, on the back of it, it's got one of those on-off switches that you see in factories where there's like a cord that hangs down from the ceiling and there's a bright yellow box with a red button and a green button and you either go on and off. And sometimes it's like up or down and it moves up dolly or whatever the deal is. But it's this big honking thing hanging off the back of the Ambot. And in my idea, this Gretchen figured out he could turn off the boss or turn him back on again using that thing once the boss had been put into that suit. And it's on the boss's back and he can't get at it. So basically the Gretchen became the boss because he could turn off the boss knob whenever he wanted to. And so the boss knob realized this and then was like, all right, fine, you're the boss. And so that's the reason that I did that. So yeah, it's not great fluff, but it's my kind of fluff for what I'm doing, and I think it's kind of fun. Like if he was a regular boss, just running around in a normal boss knob body, then no, that wouldn't happen. But because he's put himself into this robot body and the Gretchen knows where the on-off switch is, Gretchen becomes the leader. That's how that works. Now, the downside is, back in the day, you just wanted to keep the leader safe because so you kept getting that extra command point. But now with like some of the new rules and stuff like that, you can infiltrate or basically almost like drop in a little bit easier. So you can't just hide that leader Gretchen like behind a barrel, behind a wall, so he can't be attacked. He's a little bit more likely to get jumped. So that's kind of a problem with the list, at least strategy-wise. But what are you gonna do? Nicholas says, hi, Mr. Minion. Joined late because life. Here from Stockholm. Guess I'll have to watch you later tonight. Painting Deathcore of Krieg and a couple of armigers tonight. Nice. Well, it also the time change was all squirrely because we went through daylight savings last night. So, yeah, I basically got 1 hour less sleep, as did everybody, not just me. Here in the United States, we got an hour less sleep. In the fall, we get an hour more sleep because time goes back one. So anyway, yeah, that's why the things are squirrely as well here as far as this is concerned. Forge World makes a resin commando conversion kit, I think. Because I like the concept of commandos. If I could find, I'll have to check that out. Thanks for the tip. Elijah says, biggest mistake for Kill Team by GW is not keeping the packaged teams and kill zones available at least for direct order from GW. You know, I agree. I do wish that the starter boxes would be kept in stock longer. I have a suspicion they're doing it from the aspect of like, because I'll be very honest with you, that very first Kill Team starter box that came with Genestealer, Cultist, AdMech, and all that terrain, that was probably a lost leader for them. There's a good chance that maybe they didn't make very much money on those per unit. And unlike in video games where you can be selling the console for very little money, very little profit, and you make your money up on the video games, it's a little harder, I think, for tabletop stuff to do that. So the idea is that they sell these kits to get people, specifically the instigator gamers, get them involved, and then when the kits run out, the people who want the stuff that was in the kits end up buying the stuff for slightly more money because that stuff's still all available, but it's not available in this really well-priced kit. It's available in several other boxes, and then the price is a little bit higher. That's just them, I think, being business people. And, we can complain about a business being a business, but that seems like a waste of time because businesses are going to business. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. As a consumer, and as a person who's telling people about this game and them coming back and saying, I can't get that box anymore, I wish that they would still do it. But yeah, I don't know. It confuses me. Here I'm being flummoxed again, not by rules, but by business a little bit. I am confused as to why. Like, I don't think you can get the Warcry main box anymore, which seems strange. Like, I was looking recently at Warcry stuff on the website, and I don't see that main box with the terrain and the iron golems and the not the unmade. I don't know, the other army that I'm not going to play. Like, you can't buy that starter box anymore, I don't think. So that was sort of surprising to me. Like, it's not even direct. Like, it's just not on there. So if they made a number of them, I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know why they do it, other than I think it probably makes them more money. And they, as a company, they need to make money. They got people to pay and stuff like that. But as a consumer, there's times where you're like, this is a bummer. And I get that. I do. So yeah. My friend has the red gobbo for Grot Leader. I thought about doing that. I just didn't. I don't know. Like, if you don't paint him Christmassy, he can look a little bit more like a communist, and a little bit like you have to modify a couple of things so he doesn't look so Christmassy. And I've thought about doing that, but I think I'm just going to stick with the Grot Leader I've got right now, because the Grot Leader I've got right now is, I forget, or I got him on eBay, but he's got like a wrench and a gun, I think, if I remember correctly. He was from some other kit, and so that way, I'm like, my idea again is this one. This one is the smart one who's figured out that he can basically turn that thing on and off and make it, go. Jack Monk says, I love that backstory. My friend stopped running a Gretchen leader once I started using Blightlord Terminators. A lot harder to just hide his leader now. Well, see, that's the trick. Yeah, that is a deal. Cromlech also have neat orc bits. Yes, they do. I bought, at Adepticon last year, I bought Cromlech orc heads with fezzes. So all of my boys, as I do that list, will all be wearing fezzes. So there's that too. Let's see here. Glass Half Dead says the reason your list is now overcosted is because the annual changed the points cost for a choppa on boys and commandos to 1. Yeah, that's probably true. I'll probably just pull out a Gretchen. I should probably be okay, I think. I'll figure it out. Warstein Studios says, I have some Forge World Commando stuff I was about to toss on the marketplace. I'll hang on to them so you can check them out. Yeah, I would like to take a look at them. You shoot me a picture there, Josh. I'd appreciate it if you can. Let's see here. Pokecactus says you can kit bash commandos really easily if you have a lot of guard bits and some cooler orc ones, like the Burna gas mask. I'll have to take a look at that too. What was I just? Businesses are going to business. Uncle Adam 2020. Yeah, no, that's what the way that works, I think. John says Italy just quarantined 16 million people. Are you sure Adepticon is still on? Well, it's not in Italy, so yes. Last I read earlier this morning, it's still on. There's been a big outbreak in Italy, and there hasn't been nearly as big of an outbreak in the United States. So I think that's still the plan. Warcry was definitely a lost leader. Amazing value, says Kyle. Yeah, it seemed like it. I mean, when you just sit down and look at it and you go, well, yeah, but the amount of plastic in there, that's really not that much. And that's true, but the amount of molds and the money that they had to spend on all the molds is in that's a big honking heavy box. That's a lot of terrain, it's a lot of molds. And so it's the upfront costs that put them kind of behind the 8 ball and that stuff, and then they sell a bunch of it in those boxes at literally a loss or nearly a loss. so that they can get people into the system, and then those boxes disappear, and then the components that are priced properly for them to be able to make a profit are the ones that you have to be able to buy after that. So it makes sense. I get it. But yeah. Let's see. White Dwarf has rules for the Red Gobbo as a leader. Oh, that's cool. Take a look at that. If I have that copy, I don't. I've bought some White Dwarfs last year, but I haven't bought too many of them. What else we got? My Grot Leader was going to be the original Red Gobbo model from Gorka Morka, but since it's real old and out of print, I can't find it. My next plan is to get a Commissar cap and stick it on like a grunt. Well, that'd be kind of fun. I could see that. Elijah says, oh, almost forgot. Many elites can be brought in as reserves in Kill Team. Changes the game. Oh, absolutely it does. Yeah. One of the games that really first jumped up on me as I was playing Imperial Guard versus a friend of mine who was running Custodes. And the only reason I won the game was because there was only one objective, and it was in the middle of the map. And he brought his guys on from both sides, so he could get at my leader and also come in from the normal like deployment area. But then there was a lot of like hallways and stuff, and because his models were bigger, he literally could not get to the objective because I just clogged all the hallways in the map that we were playing with guard. And so he could kill a guard every turn, no problem, very easy. Kill a guard. But there weren't enough turns for him to be able to chew through all of the guard to get to the objective by the end of the game. And so I had one guy standing on it, like holding a radio, and I won. Yeah. Corvus Cabal is all I need. Painting them was so much fun. I really want to paint them, and I'm thinking more and more about trying to use some sort of color changing paints, like, like Turbo Dork stuff, I think, probably. Because I want them to have... I don't know if you have grackles where you live, but they're these black birds that when you catch them right in the sun, sometimes they get like a green metallic or a purple metallic sort of look to them. And I kind of want those guys to maybe look like that. I initially thought about going straight, like making them look like crows and just having them being very black, because I like crows a lot. But I kind of almost want to try that instead. So I haven't decided yet, but... Let's see. What should I do with my grots? I played some games with them and got no mileage out of them. Wish I just had more boys. Well, that's a good question. Grots, that's the thing about those guys, is they're not great units. They can hold an objective, and that's about it. They're not great. I wish there was a 40k version of Underworlds. I was wondering about that recently, and I'm kind of surprised there's not one. And maybe they will make one. I don't know. But yeah, I do wish that there was also a 40k version of Underworlds as well. I know what you're talking about. Something that was more of a gateway game, hex-based, whatever, blah, blah, blah. All that jazz. Small war bands that just come as like, here you go, you buy this box and you're done. There's no adding to it or tweaking it. It's just a thing. Cards, whatever. Maybe an app instead of cards. I don't know, whatever. I know it's 2020. But yeah, I think that would be very cool, because then that would also then get people to be able to use those models potentially as special units in 40k if they decide to go down that road, or even Kill Team. You know what I mean? Yeah, definitely. Let's see here. Games like Gaslands and Warcry are Muggle friendly. Muggle. I have been a gamer since the 80s, but I'm not a rules guy, so Kill Team has been extremely difficult to get into. Yeah, I can understand that, yeah. Nick Jones says, I love the small scale of Kill Team. Helps that as an old 40k player, I don't have to paint up any more guardsmen. No, that's very true, yeah. Let's see here. I've been using Leadbelcher Primer for my Necrons, but I've been thinking to switch to Chaos Black. What do you suggest? Honestly, the majority of my Necrons, I prime them black, and then I use a silver metallic airbrush paint, and I spray it on from above, kind of like a Zenithal, except instead of going from white to black, it's from silver to black. And then I throw like a Nuln Oil wash on them. I do some dry brush with silver, and they're basically done. I mean, I have to paint like, their gun has got like that weird, like if you're the Warriors, they have like that kind of like hose on their gun, so I kind of paint that green. I do a couple of little things like that, but paint their eyes red, I guess, and stuff like that. But they can be very quick if you want to go that way. If you want to get super fancy, you can also do that too. But Yeah, let's see here. Since I have to go soon, I don't mind making a controversial political statement. Magnus did nothing wrong. That's deep. 40k Underworlds would be boss. I agree, said Ed. I also agree. Let's see here. Blackstone Fortress is the answer, maybe. Blackstone Fortress is a little, like it's not the same. It's you're playing like on a hexy sort of a thing and all that kind of stuff, and it's sci-fi, but it's not that. You're not going to see competitive Blackstone Fortress play at stores too much, whereas competitive competitive Warhammer Underworlds is a relatively simple thing to set up because the board is so small and it's just it lends itself very well to those folks. Like I was talking earlier about how I saw people who were Magic players who then also started to play X-Wing because it was so simple to move into. I have seen people in that same thing also get into Warhammer Underworlds, specifically during Shadespire when it first came out. They weren't painting their models, but their models were all in a colored plastic, so it was easy to tell from your opponent's models. But some of them were then working with local commission painters and saying, hey, can you paint my, fire with the fire dwarves, whatever the heck those guys are called, fire somethings. Fire not wearing no clothes guys, those with the big beards. Those guys, can you paint those for me? Because there's like 4 or 5 of them in the set, and you go, great. And then so commission painters were getting stuff out of people who weren't generally miniatures painter player people. They were just people who liked playing games. But there were other people who were just absolutely fine to play with just unpainted stuff because there wasn't color and it's a different game, so it's okay. I prefer to paint stuff, obviously, but that's not everybody. So, let's see here. Joshua says, good evening from the Philippines, Uncle Adam. Working on a start collecting box that I hope to finish within a month in showcase quality. Well, good luck with that. That sounds fun. Yeah. Let's see here. Ed Hanley says, not really. Blackstone Fortress is an adventure board game, not a skirmish game. It's 40k Imperial Assault. Yeah, that's a good. I think that's a decent analogy. Absolutely. Let's see here. People talking about doctors. Underworld's focuses on melee combat, but expand on betrayal at Kelf, maybe? Yeah, something like that, maybe. I could see that. Let's see here. Hello, Uncle Adam. What are your thoughts on Warcaster from Privateer Press? Are you going to do some videos about that game? I don't really plan on it, no. For those of you that haven't heard, Warcaster is a new game from Privateer Press, so the people that make War Machine and Hordes. It is basically sci-fi War Machine, as far as I can tell. I'll be very honest, I was sort of disappointed when I heard that. I like the concept of sci-fi War Machine. I kind of thought they were going to make it more like Kill Team. I kind of thought they were going to make it a game where you needed 5 to 10 models. But they've said, no, it's 20 to 30 models in your army. At which point I'm like, but that's what you're already doing generally in War Machine. Unless I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Like, I think that they needed to make a game that was still a skirmish-style miniatures game, but used fewer models. I think that's important, and I think that would have been a good idea. I know they have Riot Quest, but Riot Quest is really a gateway game, kind of along the lines of Shadespire. If anything, I would say that Riot Quest is basically a direct response to something like Warhammer Underworlds, which is fine, but I think that they have a hole in their market right now. Like, I don't know that a lot of people are clamoring for a sci-fi version of a steampunk game. That's just my personal opinion. So I don't see that being something that I'm going to be interested in. But we'll see. Maybe I'll be totally wrong. Maybe the gameplay will be totally different and super excellent. But I'm just not in the mood these days to play a game where I need to keep track of 30 or more models. At least not too frequently. I am building a 1,000-point Nighthaunt army for Age of Sigmar, but it is only because Sam and I are going to be playing in a team event sometime in October. More information coming soon. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it, honestly. And I was convinced by Vince Venturella that this is a thing that we should do. So we're going to have a good time, and I'm going to enjoy it, and it's going to be fun. But in general, I don't see myself building armies that large anymore in games that I want to play. So That's why I don't see myself playing Warcaster. So sorry about that. It's 11. I have to leap, like I said, leap up from my chair and go now pack, because I need to be on the road in an hour and a half to go to the airport, to go to the Game Manufacturers Association trade show in Reno, Nevada. So if you're going to be there for some reason, come by the booth. I'll be in booth E as in Echo, 401. That's the Game 4 booth. That's why we're there. So yeah, looking forward to that and seeing some folks there at the show. And then I'll be home for like a week and a half, and then it'll be AdeptiCon. It's coming up. So I hope to see you folks potentially then as well, if you're going to be at AdeptiCon, definitely. So again, thanks for coming by the show. We had a bunch of people, had some spam bots, and I apologize for that. But we eventually did get rid of them. So yeah, again, thanks for checking things out, and thanks for coming by and watching, and have a good couple of weeks, and I'll see you after I get back from Reno. And maybe I'll tell you some stories about things I learned there. But otherwise, frequently one of my conventions, Instagram is the way to keep up with me. I take lots of pictures and put them on Instagram when I'm at conventions. So follow me on Instagram, Tabletop Minions, and we'll see you then. All right, gotta go pack. Leaping.